Mailbag Friday, and someone's wondering if 9-3 is enough. What world are we in?
You are Locked On Nebraska, your daily Nebraska Cornhuskers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Good morning. Happy Friday. Thanks for making Locked On Nebraska your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets, if your first $5 bet wins.
All right. Hello. It is Friday, a Mailbag Friday, a cold Friday in Nebraska, even colder after the Nebraska men's basketball team lost at home on Thursday night against number 25 Maryland. Warm for the Nebraska women's basketball team. We're talking about women's basketball here in the open of the show, but a huge win for Amy Williams' squad. I know, Connor, the environment at PBA when the women come back home for you in your work with them will be much more enjoyable after that. That's a huge win in College Park last night.
They need it bad because they've been skidding too. Every once in a while, they have one of those games where they just make every shot, and luckily they got it to happen in a road game against a top 25 team last night. So yes, you'll take them when you.
They're in the tournament. They're in the tournament. Most likely, the Nebraska men still have some work to do, but the sky is not falling. It was a good team that Fred Hoiberg's squad ran into last night. Nebraska was shorthanded without Berke, Connor Siege, and Bryce Williams were kind of running on fumes a bit, although Bryce still did score his 20 points. So, all right, there's a basketball question coming up a little later in this mailbag episode. We'll get to that, but we want to start with a question about Nebraska's quarterback. He's always at the top of mind. Mitch and GI asks us this question. Thank you, Mitch, frequent emailer to the Locked On Mailbag. Is Dylan Raiola making too many public appearances? How many high school basketball games are enough? Is this an NIL thing?
I don't think it's an NIL thing.
It's not.
But I don't, and I also don't think
indirectly, maybe.
Yeah, right. Yeah. I also don't think he's making too many public appearances. I wonder about, I don't know why. Is it because he has a genuine love for high school sports, and why does he need to come to Omaha to go to the games often? It seems like I don't know. It doesn't bother me that much at the end of the day, but every time I see it, I'm like, what's going on here, and why does this keep happening? And it seems to be like every night.
I think Dylan looks at his job as a Nebraska quarterback differently than most who have come before him in that position, and I think a lot of the reason he does is because he has to repeat this narrative has been out there for 2 years, but he grew up around NFL quarterbacks because of his dad's career and the fact that Dominic was close with the quarterbacks of the Lions. And Dylan has picked things up, whether it was directly told to him, you should do this as a college quarterback, or it's just an observation that he made in watching the likes of Matthew Stafford and Dan Orlovsky and John Kitna and others. And he wants to be, he's trying very hard to be a great representative of Nebraska football. And sometimes it's really like misconstrued or picked up in a different way especially by fans of other programs. I guess when someone's very visible, there's very much like an enjoyment on trashing that person publicly. Remember, he's 19. And he's still learning his way through a lot of things. And I think it's admirable that he doesn't seem to be, at least on the exterior, bothered by a lot of the stuff that comes his way, especially on social media. Maybe he's not checking it out. Maybe he's not looking at it. Although he posts, he posts from these high school basketball games. I'm sure he's aware that he's a villain to much of the Big Ten and seemingly a lot of the college football public. But whatever, he's going to keep going and doing his thing, which for him is to be out there and be a front man for Nebraska football. And one way that he can do that is to make these, you want to call them public appearances, whatever. He likes going and watching high school sports. Would you rather have him, trying to get into clubs and, going to the bars in Lincoln at age 19?
I was actually
probably get in.
I was actually just thinking about like what the alternative is, because
Sitting at home playing video games, is that better?
it feels odd to me that he's always at a high school basketball game, but then like I said, I can't, where else would he, if he was trying to be out there and be front facing and all this stuff, like what's he gonna do?
He
So
goes to all kinds of Nebraska sporting events too,
Yeah.
tons of volleyball games, even during the football season. You see him often at PBA for basketball games. I think he's been at soccer, at wrestling, at different things. So he's out there. He takes Emmett Johnson. It's like his right-hand man who goes with him. I'm sure they have an enjoyment for watching athletes compete, and they try to find a good game, and sometimes that brings them to Omaha. He's not getting paid for this, clearly. I can tell you that he's made appearances at some of the pro volleyball stuff, like with the Supernovas in particular. Appearances is maybe not the right word, but he's done things for them. Like he's done like social things for them, and come to matches when someone in his position could fully expect to get paid for that. Like that's something where he could be a sponsor, and he's done it for free because he's just trying to spread goodwill. And I think he understands from what he's learned and watching other quarterbacks and other high profile athletes in his position is that if you are a good ambassador, then those opportunities will grow. And yes, there will be a reward there at some point, but he's kind of playing the long game with the stuff. And I don't think anyone should begrudge him for it, although I'm sure people will.
Yeah. Quickly on this topic, did you see the baby Gronk stuff?
Yeah, I don't know. That maybe that was an NIL thing. And like it's hard to take issue with baby Gronk himself because he's like 13, but I can definitely take issue with his dad who's pulling the strings on this stuff. And like it probably is just like I wish it just didn't exist.
100%. Yeah. Yeah. He was hanging out with him though, and I was like, I don't know. Let's just be a little bit more careful.
But it's another example of Dylan, I think, just not caring. Like I think he probably understands that that's not going to certainly not going to win him any fans, in Iowa or Minnesota or Wisconsin, but probably not even any in Nebraska. I don't know, but like he's like, all right, hey, baby Gronk, whatever. Like this guy's this guy's on TikTok. Sure, I'll go do a video with him. Whatever, it's harmless.
Yep.
Dumb, harmless. Kurt in Omaha asks us: one bracketologist this week picked Nebraska-Creighton as an 11 seeds versus a 6 seed first round NCAA tournament game. What would it be like in the state of Nebraska if this shows up on the bracket?
Horrible. My personal hell.
For you.
Yeah.
I think I'd like it.
Yeah. I think a lot of people would like it. But yeah, because that game for each of the fan bases presides as the game which provides eternal bragging rights. Like I
think the Creighton fans would be all about it this year, especially after the way the first matchup went. That's outside of who I think might win the game. Just leading up to the game would be bad, and then after the game would be possibly even worse forever. It might also diminish every regular season game that Creighton and Nebraska play from here on out for the rest of time, because it was like remember when Duke and North Carolina played in the Final Four a couple of years ago? Yeah.
And it was like, this is it, whoever wins this game, you win, you like whatever it is. And Coach K was on his way out, and pretty sure North Carolina,
they prevented him from breaking a record, right? Yep. The Heels did. Yeah, I don't know. I think the series would survive. I think it'd be okay. I think it would maintain the intensity in years ahead with players who didn't play in that NCAA tournament game for a couple years. Yeah, that's all anybody would want to talk about. There would be no bragging rights other than who won in March. You're right. It would make the December thing look like small potatoes, but it'd be a hell of a fun week, especially if if it's this situation where it's a first round game. Well, and I saw this bracket, and it actually had Nebraska in a play-in game to get in that 11 seed, which wouldn't be as fun. You want the build-up.
But the thing is, like, I want both teams to be able to advance as they possibly can, and if they're playing each other in the round of 64, like only one gets to go. Wouldn't it be great if they were all playing on on Saturday or Sunday of the first weekend of the NCAA tournament, or hell, even in the second weekend of the NCAA tournament. Like, I don't think, like that'd be a lot cooler of a story than them just matching up and facing each other in the first day.
I mean, I suppose there's some scenarios. It's a lot easier for them, like with where their teams are at, for them to meet in the first round. I suppose there's a scenario where they could meet in the second round, and that would be, I think that would be better, especially because then Nebraska would have like achieved this thing that had never happened at the program, and it would kind of all be gravy after that. Although that's not the way people would see it. If you're playing Creighton for a chance to get to the Sweet 16, I don't know. I hope it happens. Very unlikely. I don't think the committee would do that in making a rematch like that, although they have. So I'd love to see it, but I know you wouldn't. I think it'd be fun. I think it would also be miserable, and like you'd want to pull your hair out at certain things, but that's why we love sports.
That's right. Should we do this third question here? Or should we take a break here first?
Yeah, I think this is a quick one. Let's do this here.
Okay.
I'll read it. Yeah, Vincent Napa. Hey, Vince. Blowout losses used to bother me the most. They still bother me, but fewer seem to be happening lately. The losses that flummox me the most and prevent the Huskers from climbing the Big Ten hierarchy are the games where there is an 80% probability of winning, especially in the second half, and then Nebraska loses. For instance, the 2019 Colorado game and the 2023 Minnesota game, it's Matt Rule's debut. Win those games and the seasons look different. I can cite other examples. Besides losing the turnover battle and subpar special teams, are there other reasons that prevent the Huskers from winning this type of game?
I mean, like, yeah, there's a lot of them. I mean, you mentioned a couple big ones that have happened over the years. Like there's the general, like, you're living on the razor's edge of the margin, and so you're going to be in these close games, and so things like that are magnified, you know, when you go into games like that. But like overarching, why does Nebraska lose close games? I mean, we've talked a lot about the mental whatever gremlins that are going on in the program and have been there and haven't really gone away much. So I think that's a huge part of it too.
Yeah, I do. I think the mental hurdle is a big thing. Obviously, special teams, poor special teams play, and the propensity to turn it over are huge in that conversation. And I just say also the inefficiency of Nebraska's offense over a period of years to be able to score when it needs to in the fourth quarter is a huge thing. And some of that is tied up with the turnovers, but just having a quarterback who can take you down the field and you feel confident can get 70 yards, 60 yards in 2 minutes to win a game. There are some quarterbacks who are going to do that at the NFL and college level. And then there are others who haven't done it. And Nebraska hasn't had a guy do that regularly for quite a while. So those are some reasons. All right. When we come back, our old friend Scott Frost is in the news this week, and we are going to discuss it. That's coming up next. But first, a message from Factor Meals. Are you looking to optimize your nutrition this year? Factor makes eating well easy with chef-prepared, dietitian-approved meals that are fresh, never frozen, and ready to heat and eat in just 2 minutes. With 40 options across 8 dietary preferences every week, you can customize your meals to fit your lifestyle. Is it calorie smart? Are you looking to up the protein? Keto, is that something that you're into? Factor even offers wholesome smoothies, breakfasts, grab-and-go snacks to keep you fueled all day long. You will love how Factor takes the stress out of meal planning. Try it. The convenience is unbeatable. No prep, no mess, just great food in minutes. Eat smart with Factor. Get started at factormeals.com/lockedoncollege50off and use the code LOCKEDONCollege50off to get 50% off your first box plus free shipping. That's code LOCKEDONCollege50off at Factor50off at factormeals.com/lockedoncollege50off to get 50% off plus free shipping on your first box. That's it.
But that is not it for this podcast. Welcome back. Connor Happerman Sherman with you.
My apologies.
On a Friday. Happy college baseball opening day to those who celebrate. Nebraska
Happy Valentine's
baseball.
Day.
I should have said that first, probably. Happy Valentine's Day as well.
Was it your wife's birthday yesterday?
It was my wife's birthday on Wednesday.
That's 2 days ago. Okay. I knew I heard
Yes.
it on the radio at one point this week. So really close to Valentine's Day. How do you deal with that?
It's always been a factor. No pun intended, I guess, from the ad read
Factor
there.
meals, that's what you do?
No, we got a like a boatload of sushi this year. It was awesome.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it kind of
one, man.
It kind of morphs into a week, and
Mm-hmm.
that's a good thing for everybody.
Friday night Valentine's, so that's a double. Everybody get out and do something nice for your significant other today.
Indeed. All right, back to the questions. You mentioned Scott Frost before. Aaron and Lincoln, thoughts on Scott Frost's comments this week, hinting that he did not feel supported by Trev Alberts while at Nebraska. Yeah. No, he did not feel supported.
Did you hear this?
I did.
Yeah, so Scott Frost had a press conference at UCF this week, and he was asked not about Trev Alberts. He was asked about Terry Mohair.
Current AD. Yeah,
he was asked about Terry Mohair's current AD at UCF, and Scott turned it into a conversation about Trev Alberts and how it's debilitating if you don't have the support of your athletic director. Now, Trev was not named in his answer, but he said, I've been in the situation where you don't feel the support from your AD, to paraphrase the former Nebraska coach. And it's not great. It's hard to get things done. It's debilitating. So my thought is that this is revisionist history, because Scott is attempting to make this a Trev thing when, in my opinion, it was more of a Scott thing that caused the two of them not to see eye to eye. They definitely did not. We can agree on that. And he was pointing out that he didn't feel the love from his athletic director through the time that they were together before they both departed, one on their own, one not. And yeah, they didn't see eye to eye, in part because Frost was tough to work with. It was tough to be his boss.
Yeah. And I think it was like Trev had a very specific way he wanted to do things as well. And I think he had preconceived notions about Scott coming in that Scott confirmed when he got there. Which really my takeaway from this, which this is nothing that we didn't know. Like, I'm not surprised to hear this. And by the way, I don't have any problem with Scott talking about this. Like him mentioning it in a veiled way, talking about his own AD, like, great, go for it.
Okay, that's interesting.
I had no problems.
He left Nebraska totally out of his introductory press conference a month or so ago, and I kind of thought that was going to be his take on this whole thing, like just the high road. So it was weird for me to hear it brought up in that place where he didn't need to. He could have just talked about his current AD, but whatever. My
takeaway, if we're doing revisionist history for a second, is that they never really should have worked together. I mean, he should have been fired, like when Trev got there.
Trev should have got rid of him right away.
Yeah. He should have never been allowed to coach that season. And
you're talking 22,
right?
So, yeah. Well, I mean, Trev had the whole previous year. Yeah,
Trev got hired the previous summer.
Mm-hmm.
And so after
the summer of 21, the summer of 21. So yeah, he had him for a year, and then they could have parted ways. You're right, and then Nebraska wouldn't have Matt Rule right now, but somebody else.
But like it was a toxic thing the entire time, not only because of the two personalities, but just, because of the circumstances that they were in as well. And Trev, I don't think had the money or political capital to make that move yet. And it didn't happen. And then it flamed out and it was ugly. So like, it didn't have to go that way.
Funny. Trev, holding off on a move because he didn't have the money or political capital. He held off, and then, a few months later, when it came time to make this huge announcement about what he wanted to do with the stadium, he probably didn't have the money or the political capital to make that move, but he did it anyway, and then ended up leaving Nebraska in part because of frustration over how that played out in the months ahead.
And by the way, if he would have waited 3 more weeks to fire Frost, he would have had more money.
You're right. He would have. And that 22 season really wouldn't have gone much different. He could have started his search for Frost's successor while Scott was still coaching against Oklahoma, the week that they got blown out with Mickey Joseph as the coach. All right, enough about that. You want to go to this next question from Shane?
Yeah, here we go. Shane in Kansas City. What a city. Baseball's coming soon, Shane. In the past mailbag episode, someone referred to 9-3 in 2025 as a disappointment. Given the past decade of Nebraska football, in what world is that a disappointment? For all the fans who just want to see the team stop being the butt of jokes, this is the kind of unhinged behavior that puts a target on the program. Should these fans be shunned because they spend too much time on message boards or fired directly into the sun? Thanks.
I think Shane is maybe reaching a bit on what happened in the mailbag episode last week. So we were asked a question about comparing the differences between a Nebraska team that went 9-3 and won a bowl game versus a team that got into the playoff at 9-3 because it's now expanded and got blown out in the first round. And what would you prefer? And there were some who were unhappy with one or the other. Like this wasn't a great this was a disappointment in some way.
Yeah, classic. It was the classic. Like, would you rather miss the playoff and just have the season end basically there, and you could tie it up in a bow, or would you rather go to the playoff and get your ass kicked and like have to deal with all that? And like my answer was always go to the playoff, point blank. Period. I think that's what he's talking about, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, that was the only time that we had a 9-3 conversation, I think. So. I agree with Shane that it's not the right place for Nebraska fans to be in right now to be disappointed in any way with the 9-3 season. If it happens, great. If it gets you in the playoff, even better. If you go to a decent bowl game after a 9-3 regular season, that's fine too right now. In a few years, maybe we're talking about something different, but right now, hey, if you can get to 9-3, be happy with it.
Yeah, I think for 2025, I mean, I think we were talking sort of more program, wide.
Yeah. Okay.
But for 2025,
well, there may come a day. Yeah.
9-3.
There may come a day when 9-3 is a disappointment.
It's exactly. But right now for 2025, it's like, depending on how it all plays out, because you always have to throw that caveat in there. But like, you could be 9-0 and then lose the last 3 and people might be mildly disappointed. But if you go 9-3 in general, people are going to be pretty happy around here, and myself included with that. Let's slam these two questions together before we take our final break here. Mitchie V on YouTube. Thank you, Mitchie V. Last thing you want to do is waste one of your practices to entertain the fans, talking about the spring game situation. And then Nate says, hard pass on all sport features during the spring game /event /showcase /weekend. Other teams play dozens of games. Football gets 12. Any other than a laser focus on football is a no thanks for us. Nate speaks for the people.
Yeah. So if Nebraska gets to this April 26th thing and it's going to have some kind of an entertainment event for fans, I don't even know if it would have to count as one of the 15 practices. It depends on what kind of football activities you're doing. I agree with Mitchie V. Not to be confused with Dickie V. If you're not going to get anything done from a football point of view, then it shouldn't be one of the 15 practices. And you could argue that Nebraska has been doing that in the spring game, wasting a practice to entertain the fans. When sometimes there's not a lot that anybody gets out of the spring game other than risking injury. But it appears what they're going to do this year is going to be a lot more scaled down from a football place than even what we've seen in the past in some of the lesser exciting spring games. So I think they could be done with spring practice. Like maybe you finish up spring practice on Friday, April 25th, and then the 26th, you come back out for like a skills competition and an alumni flag football versus, current players event. They'd have to get some guidance from their compliance staff on like exactly like what you can and can't do for it to count as a practice. But I don't think it would be that difficult to structure this thing so that it's just a fan fest and not a practice. And then on Nate's question, yeah, you're going to get other sports. You're going to get other sports on that weekend at the end of April, and you don't have to. If you're just a football guy, which I know there's a lot of people when it comes to Nebraska, like they can win national championships and compete for all kinds of trophies in other sports, but you're just going to be football, and that's great. That's what drives the bus. So just pay attention to the football part if that's what you want.
Exactly. Well, I think that's the key here. Like I have no interest in a Pro Bowl style all sports showcase. I have no interest in that. But I don't care.
You don't
that
have to
they
watch
do it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, go do it. It's for somebody. It's just not for me. So like, we don't have to not have it just because it's not the spring game, like
It's
they're
like
going
the
to do
Super Bowl
something.
halftime show.
Yeah.
If you don't like it, you don't
It ain't
have
for
to pay
you.
attention to it. It's not for you. You
Yeah. Right. So
All
like, they're
right.
going to do something and people aren't going to like it, but they really just shouldn't care about it.
Yeah. Okay, when we come back, there's a question in the mailbag about how Nebraska players can bond in the locker room when their salaries are separated by hundreds of thousands of dollars or even $1 million. That's coming up next.
But first, a word from our friends from the FanDuel Sportsbook. And since football is over, very sadly, we have something to cheer you up. The NBA, it's just getting started, and it's time to start gearing up for the postseason as well. And there's only one place to do that, FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. With FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game. So even if you miss the opening tip, or you want to bet on a fourth quarter comeback, or you want to bet a player over or under prop, you could take advantage of that during the game. And if you're looking for a bigger payout, you could combine those bets for a same game parlay. The live betting feature is fantastic. And you could also do season long things. You could bet on your favorite team to win the championship at the end of the year. It kind of seems wide open to me at the moment, by the way. So maybe there's some value for you there right now. And right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just head to FanDuel.com and join today. FanDuel.com. Take your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA.
Final segment of this Friday mailbag episode of the Locked On Nebraska podcast. I'm Mitch Sherman from The Athletic. Connor Happer of 1620 The Zone is with me. The weekend is in front of us. All the hoops action, at least at the high major level in the state, is out of town this weekend. Nebraska men are going to Northwestern on Sunday. There's no football. Sadly, we have no football for many weekends ahead. It's cold. It's gonna be extremely cold. They're talking about more snow this on Saturday. Like what is everybody doing this weekend here in the middle of February after you get past Valentine's Day?
It's gotta be like a charge your batteries type of weekend, right? Like just chill out, don't do much, maybe get some things done around the house.
It doesn't sound very fun. I'm gonna go check out some high school basketball.
Oh, okay, Dylan Raiola.
Yeah, right. My schedule just has not been mixing well with the local teams here. Local by local, I say like I'm in Gretna, so got two Class B teams, 4 good boys and girls, and some fun hoops to be able to watch. But like my schedule between going to events and traveling earlier in the basketball season, and then like my kids' baseball stuff, like everything's been a conflict. And this weekend I can finally get out and watch some high school hoops, so I'm excited about that.
Excellent. I don't have any plans, and I'm okay with it personally.
Okay.
At the moment.
All right.
Okay. Let's get to our final round of questions here.
Go for it.
Take the red pill. Nice on YouTube.
I don't know what that is.
How are the players who are making nothing going to bond with players who make $1 million a year? So we could also mess with that scale a little bit as well. I don't think nobody's making nothing anymore, it seems.
Yeah, you're at least getting cost of attendance. I mean, there's still going to be some traditional walk-ons, honestly. I mean, I think at the bottom of that roster on the 96 to 105 range, there might be some guys that get nothing. Like that if you're not on,
but like there's going to be
they'll probably get some NIL.
Yeah, there's going to be probably 80 plus dudes on the football team who get rev sharing plus whatever they get from NIL, and then. Yeah, like those other, everybody's going to be getting paid. Everyone's.
We were talking. Hey, I was having a conversation with an official, within the athletic department last night at PBA before the tip of Nebraska Maryland, and we were talking about this rev share stuff and what Troy Dannon said last week in his KETV interview about how about 100 to 105 athletes will get rev share, and we were discussing like how many of them might be football players. You and I had this conversation earlier in the week on this show, and I brought up the subject, and I do not know the answer to this, to whether their salary information, I'm sorry, to whether their NIL rights payment information, the money that they receive, is going to be public. So
they have to sign contracts. I mean, so they go through the university.
Well, they're not university employees in the way that like a coach is. So there may be some workaround. The schools are going to do what they can. The public schools that were subject to open records are going to do what they can to avoid making this stuff public. And people in our positions in the media, I don't know about me in particular. I'm not sure that I want that headache, but there's going to be people who work in our business who are going to push and want to get that information to find out what Arch Manning is getting paid, what Dylan Raiola is getting paid, what a second string linebacker gets paid. And it's going to be very interesting to see how that's determined. I don't know if it will end up in court or exactly. I would imagine yes. I would imagine a school is going to try to deny that information, and they're going to get sued by a media outlet at some point here in the 2025 year, and we'll see what happens if that stuff has to be released. Whether it is or whether it's not, the players within the locker room are going to have an idea, obviously. When their teammate shows up with a $30,000 watch, they're going to know what that guy's getting. And if you're getting nothing or you're getting much less than that, then sure, it can lead to chemistry issues. But that kind of tiered system already exists in other places, like it exists in pro sports. And it already exists in college sports to a certain degree. So I don't know how it's that much different in 2025.
Yeah, it is definitely something that you have to deal with way more now than you did 10 years ago. And it's definitely a thing. But I haven't, like, I don't know. It won't be a thing that happens on the surface. I don't think if it's a problem at all, it gets taken care of. Behind the scenes, or it doesn't, and it then fizzles up to the surface. But yes, I think that's probably a thing. Husker Do writes in, Joe Dirt, Husker Do's, Husker Dudes, all the snakes and sparklers. All right. Considering that Josh Heupel didn't like using his starters on special teams, I think Eckler could even be better at Nebraska.
Better than he was at Tennessee.
Possible.
So I don't know the exact breakdown and if this is like a myth or if this is like total reality. How many top line players? I know in kick returns they use some of their better players, but maybe Tennessee didn't. I think that's on the right track. That Tennessee didn't like to use frontline players. Look, I mean Tennessee's probably recruiting at a higher level than Nebraska, and not probably is, and has a deeper stable of talent in its program as a playoff team this year. So I think that the Tennessee guys who are on special teams are not slouches. And if Matt Rule is going to want to use frontline players, he's going to give Eckler the green light to go get top corners and top linebackers, backup linemen, but it's fine. I don't think that's what makes the difference. The thing that Eckler is going to bring is the energy and the passion and the motivation to go out and do it.
Yeah, I don't think about the types of players that he had when he had success, because he had success with a lot of different players over a lot of years now. So I think he'll be able to figure it out regardless of which players he has. All right, quickly through the last two. Here's James. Why does Matt Rule always look so frustrated whenever Mitch starts asking him a question at the press conference?
Yeah, we can probably answer both of these last two very quickly. I don't think that's the case. I don't know. Maybe I'm focused on my question too much to analyze the coach's facial expression. We have a good relationship. You don't want to have too good of a relationship with the coach if you're in my spot, so that like he thinks you're going to do him favors. And obviously, you don't want the relationship to be on the other side also. So we can have a good give and take. It's fine. Like I have a good relationship with Matt Rule. Like there's been times where it's, trended a little bit one direction or the other here, but it always evens out. He's an outstanding coach to get along with from a media point of view. I think he's very fair and understanding of what our jobs are. So is he frustrated? I think maybe you're misinterpreting his facial expression.
Okay,
I think he's like he gets very thoughtful when questions are asked.
Oh, because your questions are so interesting. Yes.
What do you think? What do you think? Have you noticed this?
I haven't. So I'm gonna check next time this happens. I'm gonna really, really watch and see how it looks. And we'll make our judgment from there.
I don't even know if you can see it. Like the camera that, unless you're in the room, James, the camera that they have from up there on the podium, like usually they flip to the back camera when there's a question being asked from the room, so you can't even see the coach's facial expression. Maybe he's frustrated when he starts answering the question because he's like, "Oh, that's a good question. I don't know quite how to answer that." I'm not trying to stump him.
One more from Todd in Kansas City. Once again, great city. Mitch, how come you're never on Squad Pod episodes? We like listening to you.
Well, I'm generally coaching baseball, coaching the 14-year-olds when those things are recorded. So,
yeah, we're both pretty busy, and that's why we don't show up on those a lot. Like because they record them at night, during a day of the week sometimes. And
what I would say is we're on 5 days a week, the two of us. So you can get your fill of Connor and Mitch 5 times a week. And
damn right.
Yeah, you probably won't see us a lot but we'll try to make an appearance here and there on the pod squads.
All right, appreciate your questions today. Thank you. Enjoy your weekend with hopefully not too many events coming your way.
Stay warm.
Appreciate you making Locked On Nebraska your first listen today. Your second listen, we have it lined up for you as well. Locked On Big Ten. Find Locked On Big Ten on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts.